In the heart of ancient Rome stands a monument that has witnessed screams louder than thunder, cheers darker than nightmares, and battles more brutal than imagination itself, the mighty Colosseum. When it was first unveiled in 80 AD under Emperor Titus, it was not just a building of stone and arches. It was a symbol of power. A declaration that Rome ruled not only lands and oceans, but life and death itself. More than 50,000 spectators would pour into its massive structure, their sandals scraping against stone corridors, their voices rising in anticipation. They didn't come for speeches. They didn't come for art. They came to watch men fight until one of them stopped breathing. The Colosseum was a masterpiece of engineering. Beneath the golden sunlight, its towering arches cast shadows that felt almost alive. Underground, however, was where the real story began. Hidden beneath the arena floor was the hypogeum, a labyrinth of dark tunnels, cages, and wooden elevators. Here, gladiators waited in silence. Some were prisoners of war. Some were slaves. Some were criminals. And a rare few were volunteers seeking fame and fortune. Above them, the roar of the crowd vibrated through the stone. Below, fear hung thick in the air. When the signal was given, trapdoors would burst open. A warrior would rise into the blinding light, greeted by 50,000 hungry eyes. Across from him stood his opponent, armed with sword, trident, or shield. The sand beneath their feet was not golden for beauty. It was there to absorb blood. And it did so often. Steel clashed. Shield splintered. The crowd screamed with savage delight. Every strike could be the last. Every fall could mean death. But it wasn't just man against man. Wild animals from the far corners of the empire. Lions from Africa, bears from the forests of Europe, even exotic beasts never before seen by Roman eyes, were unleashed into the arena. Imagine standing alone, armed with nothing but a short blade, as a starving lion charges toward you while thousands cheer for violence. For the Romans, this was spectacle. For those in the sand, it was survival. The games could last for days. Mornings were often reserved for animal hunts, where trained fighters called venators battled exotic creatures. Midday brought public executions. Criminals condemned to die would be thrown into staged myths, forced to reenact tragic legends that ended in real death. By afternoon, the main event began, gladiator duels. Some fights were quick and merciless. Others became legendary, with skilled warriors earning admiration and even fan followings across Rome. Yes, gladiators were slaves, but they were also celebrities. Women wrote about them. Children idolized them. Graffiti praising their strength and bravery covered Roman walls. A victorious gladiator could earn wealth, gifts, and if fortunate enough, freedom. The wooden sword known as the rudis symbolized that rare liberation. But freedom was rare. Death was common. What makes the Colosseum even more chilling is how normal it all felt to the Roman citizens. Senators sat in the best seats. The emperor himself would attend, using the games to gain popularity and distract the public from political troubles. A simple gesture of his thumb could decide a wounded fighter's fate. Mercy or death. Life or execution. In that moment, the crowd would hold its breath, waiting for the verdict. And yet, behind the brutality, there was strategy. The games were political theater. Bread and circuses, they called it, keeping the population fed and entertained to prevent rebellion. While citizens cheered for blood, emperors strengthened control. The arena was not just a battlefield. It was a tool of power. As the sun set over Rome, workers would rake the sand, covering the stains of the day. Bodies would be dragged away. The crowd would disperse, discussing their favorite fights as if they had watched a sporting match. Tomorrow, it would all begin again. More fighters. More animals. More blood. But beneath the glory and spectacle lies a haunting question: how did an entire civilization normalize death as entertainment? How did cheering for suffering become a celebration? The Colosseum stands today in silence, its broken walls whispering stories of courage, cruelty, ambition, and survival. It reminds us that humanity is capable of both extraordinary achievement and unimaginable darkness. And this is only the beginning of its story. Because what happened inside those walls would echo through history for centuries to come. If you think you know the Colosseum, prepare yourself. The next chapter reveals secrets even darker than the battles themselves. So stay with us, and if you crave powerful stories that bring history alive in ways you've never imagined, make sure you subscribe to the channel and become part of this journey into the shadows of the past. Long after the cheers faded and the empire began to crumble, the Colosseum remained. Wind swept through its empty arches. Grass pushed through cracks in the stone. But the silence was deceiving. Because beneath the sand of the arena, secrets were still buried, secrets of suffering, faith, and transformation. As centuries passed, the brutal games declined. Changing values and the rise of new beliefs began to challenge Rome's appetite for blood. When Emperor Constantine the Great embraced Christianity in the 4th century, the cultural tide slowly shifted. Gladiatorial games were eventually banned. The arena that once echoed with screams became strangely quiet. But legends began to grow. Some believed early Christians were martyred inside the Colosseum, facing wild beasts rather than renouncing their faith. Though historians debate the scale of such events, the symbolism became powerful. The same ground that once celebrated death became associated with sacrifice and spiritual endurance. Over time, the structure transformed from a monument of brutality into a symbol of reflection. Earthquakes struck Rome, tearing away massive sections of the outer wall. Stones were stolen and reused to build churches and palaces. The once mighty amphitheatre became a quarry. Nature and time slowly reclaimed what emperors had built. Yet even in ruin, the Colosseum refused to disappear. It stood as a skeleton of history, reminding the world of Rome's rise and fall. Archaeologists eventually uncovered the hypogeum, the underground chambers where fear once lived. They found intricate systems of pulleys and lifts, proving the astonishing engineering skills of Roman builders. Hidden passages showed how animals and fighters were moved unseen before dramatic entrances. What once seemed like chaotic violence was actually carefully orchestrated spectacle. But perhaps the darkest secret was not the bloodshed itself. It was the realization that ordinary people filled those seats. Fathers, mothers, children, cheering, laughing, demanding more. The Colosseum forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature. Under certain conditions, cruelty can become entertainment. Power can disguise injustice. And crowds can normalize what would otherwise horrify them. Today, millions of visitors walk through its arches every year. They take photographs where gladiators once stood. They gaze up at the open sky where awnings once shielded spectators from the sun. Guides tell stories of emperors and warriors, of lions and legends. But if you stand still long enough, you can almost hear it, the echo of steel, the distant roar, the heartbeat of an empire obsessed with dominance. Yet the Colosseum's meaning has evolved. It now represents remembrance rather than violence. Each Good Friday, the Pope leads a torchlit procession there, honoring martyrs and calling for peace. The arena that once symbolized death now hosts prayers for life. History did not erase its darkness, but it transformed its legacy. The Colosseum teaches us that civilizations are defined not only by their triumphs but by their choices. Rome built roads, laws, and architecture that still influenced the world. But it also built an arena where death became a public celebration. Both truths exist side by side. And perhaps that is why the Colosseum fascinates us today. It is not merely ancient stone. It is a mirror. It asks us what we cheer for. What we tolerate. What we normalize. It challenges us to learn from the past rather than repeat it. As night falls over Rome, golden lights illuminate the arches of the Colosseum. Tourists leave. The city quiets. And the old arena stands beneath the stars, no longer filled with blood, but with memory. A monument not just to Roman power, but to human complexity itself. If this journey into history stirred your imagination, don't let it end here. There are countless untold stories hidden within the world's greatest monuments, stories of ambition, mystery, courage, and transformation. Subscribe to the channel and join us as we uncover the secrets history tried to bury. Because sometimes, the stones that stand silent have the loudest stories to tell.